Hey folks, welcome, and thank you for checking out TRINI Corner. And on this episode, I'm bringing to you an academic pioneer. She's not going to think that of herself, but I'm saying it. Her name is Jacqueline Moniquette. Hello folks, welcome to this episode of TRINI Corner, where we're introducing academic pioneer Jacqueline Moniquette. For the TRINI Corner series, brought to you by Caribbean Airlines and supported by our Consul General, Mr. J. Andre Laveau. So, I'm Ozzie Stewart, and I'm very, very grateful that you're here with us and giving flowers to deserving impactors like Jacqueline within the Trinidadian diaspora. So on this episode, she has set a very high standard in quality assurance systems within the Caribbean islands and elsewhere. So please like, follow, share, drop a comment, and check out our membership page for the after show, Inside the Call. And you know, it offers a more personal view of our guest, Jacqueline. Every story leaves a mark. Every voice builds a movement. Now, the spirit of On the Call with Ozzie can travel with you, worn, shared, and supported across the world. Visit us for more merch. onthecallpodcast.com/store. Check it out. Thank you. So, listen up. I'm going to tell you who Jacqueline is, as we have right now. So, Trinidadian-born Jacqueline Moniquette is now based in Barbados, but she has served as the Senior Program Officer at the Quality Assurance Unit of the University of the West Indies, UWI, as we know it, where she has garnered a reputation as a pioneering force in academic quality assurance. With over 11 years of exceptional service at UWI's Cave Hill campus, Jacqueline played a pivotal role in establishing the quality assurance framework, utilizing her expertise in project execution, institutional management, academic assessment, and curriculum development. Going back a little bit, Jacqueline was a student of St. Joseph Convent in Trinidad. She got her BA via scholarship from Trinidad at the Cardinal Stritch College, and she majored in biology and chemistry and minored in mathematics. Then went on to get her master's at Columbia University in science education while teaching at Queens College in Brooklyn. Teaching what? Science. She's a graduate of the challenges posed by a dynamic academic environment. Jacqueline has been instrumental in elevating the standards of education within the Caribbean. Her recent involvement in a situation analysis at the University of Guyana on July in 2023 set the stage for a transformative week-long quality assurance workshop in January 2025, aimed at enhancing UG's, University of Guyana, their operational quality in line with stakeholder expectations. Renowned for her critical thinking and calming presence, Jacqueline's insights have shaped discussions amongst deans and department heads, fostering an environment of continuous improvement. Her dedication to developing comprehensive quality assurance systems reflects her belief that educational excellence is vital for the future of the Caribbean. As Vice Chancellor Professor Lawrence Carrington aptly stated, the University of Guyana's ability to fulfill Guyana's needs hinges on its ability to achieve and maintain excellence in teaching and research. That's Jacqueline Moniquette. Beyond her institutional contributions, Jacqueline is an intrepid explorer of knowledge, deeply engaged in metaphysics and spirituality. Her book, Crossings, published in 2018 and 2019, invites readers to explore the interconnectedness of life through a multifaceted lens of science, philosophy, and spirituality, providing practical applications for improved well-being and harmony. As a pioneer who has set a very high standard, her legacy of nurturing quality assurance systems and fostering academic excellence undoubtedly continues to inspire future educators and institutions throughout the region. Jacqueline steps into the next chapter of her career, however, and that is interest in peace and spiritual pursuits. Is that correct? Lovely. And now we're going to get into the questions with Jacqueline Moniquette. And so the first one I'm going to ask is, can you share what initially inspired you to pursue a career in quality assurance in higher education?
Well, a large part of my career was spent at the Caribbean Examinations Council before I went to UE. And I went there to, I don't know if you recall, that we would have recalled that we and the Caribbean took examinations at the end of high school, Cambridge examinations.
I was part of that.
Right. I was also.
O's and A's.
Yes. And then the Caribbean embarked on the development of their own exams, and the Caribbean Examinations Council was established to do the work. Right. And so now everybody in the Caribbean, most people in the Caribbean, take the Caribbean Examinations Council's examinations so that Cambridge is no longer dominant there.
But do they still take the Cambridge, or is it just the dominance is not there?
They can if they want to, but the governments, some of the governments pay the fees for the students. Trinidad, for example, pays the fees.
Right.
Some other governments pay some of the fees. Right. But Caribbean Examinations Council in itself was a pioneering institution because they are the ones who took us out of, at least wanted us to move away from the British exams to our own exams. And that is how the council was set up and what it was set up to do. I was hired there to manage the start of the science program, the single sciences, biology, chemistry, and physics. And the mandate was that we were to develop our own syllabuses and our own examinations. And they were to reflect the Caribbean, way of life and so on, while making sure that the children got the basic science, the right science, but and it reflected in an environment. So for example, when we ask questions on plant life and so, we would refer to the plants that grow around us and so on. So it was put in some of the things that could be put in a Caribbean context. And it was the people here in the Caribbean that developed these examinations and syllabi. And a lot of the people from UE who were experts in their fields, we came together and we had meetings which lasted very long and late into the night. So the syllabuses were completely our own, and they introduced features that were not in the English examinations, like school-based assessment, which was grading children while they, as part of their homework and all of that, which contributed to their final grade. There were a lot of features in those examinations that were not in the English exams.
So what significant challenges had you faced in establishing the quality assurance frameworks at UE?
Well, when I went to UE, I went there from the Caribbean Examinations Council, where I had been, the person that was in charge of the exams for the sciences for 20 years. Wow. So based on that experience, I knew I had a very good idea of what quality was about, and UE was then trying to set up its own framework because it was demanded then in the international community that you have these systems in place in order to get your university accredited worldwide. Right. So when I was hired as part of the team that was working on setting up that framework. And I had my counterpart in Jamaica and at the Mona, and a counterpart in Trinidad. And it was the three of us together with the head of the organization who invited me to come there, that we worked to set the whole system in place. So we developed the materials and everything and so on, and the training we had to do and so forth.
Can you describe a particularly rewarding moment or project in your career that stands out to you? Like, what was the joy of doing what you're doing?
You mentioned Guyana, where Professor Carrington was head at one time. We were invited to do workshops in several countries. And the one we did in Guyana particularly stands out because Guyana the university was trying to build up back itself after, all the turmoil they had there and so on. And we had a week there training the people, the University of Guyana staff, the academics, in how to proceed. And we did a manual for them. And we tried to incorporate as much as possible so that when we left, they would have some reference, something to work with. Right. And one of the people who attended the workshop said, this is like the Bible of quality assurance, this work. It was about 100 pages, and I was the head of that team that went there with a couple of my colleagues. And we spent a week, we were interviewed on TV and all of that.
What kind of stresses and pressures did you feel at that point? Because you were heading something that was going to affect the entire Caribbean.
It was very stressful at times because in both my jobs, the one at Caribbean Examinations Council and the one at UWI, I was in charge of putting new systems in place. And as you know, when you come with new ideas and new systems, there's resistance. And in some cases, great resistance. And then there are those who come on board and give you a lot of support. So it's a kind of a tension between support and resistance. But one of the things that you had to learn was manage the resistance and don't let it overpower you, because sometimes things took on like you were the face of the new endeavor, and therefore when you are the face, the people have things to say that it's to you. And then when we went to train people, we were the ones going to do the training. So one of the great things about working in these two institutions, they are Caribbean institutions, and I met people from the whole Caribbean. Some of them became my very close friends, and it created a camaraderie among people, especially in the Caribbean Examinations Council, because the teachers met to mark the exams and so on. And they came from all about. And they looked for, even though it was very hard work, they looked forward to meeting every summer to get these exams marked, and then we'd get the results out and so on and so forth. It was very stressful work at times, very hard work, long hours, but then the rewards were great.
In your opinion, what are the key components of an effective quality assurance system in higher education?
I would say that the systems that you put in place, let me just give a brief overview of how the system works. The system is designed to help the university to maintain high standards in their offerings, so that every offering that they have, whatever it's called, whether it's in language, whether it's law, whether it's medicine, they have their own syllabus and they have their exams. But the quality assurance unit was designed to help them maintain those standards over time and in terms of relevance and how many students were getting through, and if they were not, why not? And in other words, it was a self-examination of what you were doing, guided by the principles of quality assurance. So we are the ones who set the guidelines, we wrote the materials to train and so on and so forth, and then we applied each subject area, applied that, and then when they had to write a report on what they had achieved between the first time we had it, they had so far, and they had to talk about their examinations, their syllabuses, their performance, everything concerned with the subject. And then we got a team of people coming from another branch of the university. So we were here in Cave Hill, so we'd have somebody from Mona or St. Augustine, and also from abroad. Right. So we got people from all over, from the US, we had people from New Zealand, all about. And we would form a team, we'd meet for a week. The team would go through everything concerning that subject. They would report that the subject people had written about their things. Then they would meet, they would interview students, lecturers, everybody, so that they would get oral feedback. So they didn't just go and say what the people said, you know. So they got a live feedback, and at the end of that week, they would write a report. And that report would be what would point in the direction of where things were good and where things needed improvement.
What advice would you give to individuals looking to pursue a career in exactly that quality assurance realm?
Well,
because it takes...
You have to be able to manage. Manage very diverse people, because...
Educated people.
Educated people, people who sometimes have tremendous egos.
Correct.
Some people who have not bought into the system.
Right.
Especially when we started. Now, you know, it's been going a while.
Right.
Although the person who took over from me said they still get resistance. But can you imagine when you go in for the first time, the people in the university at that time had the idea that they were qualified and they were doing this for a long time. So who are you to come and we don't need anybody looking at what we do.
Correct.
But it was a requirement, and plus it was very good, because I mean you could be doing things wrong for a long time.
That's right.
You know, and the students not doing well and all of that. So so you have to be able to manage all of these different personalities, and you have to not take things personally when you get some, you know, feedback, and that is when I told you that silence is a wonderful thing.
Yes. You hit them with silence, and they don't know what to do.
Yes.
What impact do you hope? And I know this is not where you live, but as I'm asking you this one, what kind of impact do you hope your work will have, you know, further down the road? Because your work is the guidelines, has formed the guidelines for the people coming after you. They look to you.
Well, what I made sure to do in both instances is to leave proper records. So I was very particular about the files, so that when the person who came after me would have a proper reference of what went on, how the things were done, and so on. So the person, I'm very lucky to have met the person who took over from me at the Quality Assurance Unit, and plus she inherited my administrative assistant, who she came to me as a new person, and I trained her. So she inherited a very trained and a well-operating person, and who knew the ropes and knew how to manage and everything, her part of the job, which was, she was in charge of when all the overseas people came, you know, booking hotels, all that kind of thing, and meals and everything. She's very good at it. And she also inherited the the whole files with all what went before, so she could read back and see the history of it and how it was done. So she just follows up on that, and she, you know, we talk, and she says she's very grateful. And she said that one time she went to, when she was introducing herself to one of the heads there, and she said, I'm the replacement for Miss Moniquette. And she said the person told her, those are very big shoes to fill.
That's right.
And my secretary, she said, sometimes when things are happening there, and my secretary would say, well, Miss Moniquette would do so and so,
right.
You know, that kind of thing. So in that way, the succession really, you know, it flowed evenly because of the type of person that came, and how she was appreciative of what she met. And I told her, we build the ground floor, you have to build the next story. Same thing happened when I left CXC. I left, you know, as I said, I was the first person to be in charge of all that development of all those subjects. And so there was a very good file and a record of everything and the performances and everything, because, you know, you have to keep good records, especially if you're the first one.
And also if you want this to be felt down the road.
Yes.
And follow.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something, about your book. Could you elaborate on how it reflects on your views on interconnectedness in education?
Well, the book, I didn't really start off to write a book. But what I was always engaged in was trying to understand life better. So from one of the first courses I took when I went to university was a course in comparative religions, because I was brought up a Catholic. We went to church and all of that, but some of the things that they taught didn't make sense to me. So when I went away, I stopped going to church, and then I started searching. So for a long time I was searching on my own, reading books and so on, metaphysical texts and so forth. And when I returned home, I went to teach at the Teachers Training College in Trinidad. That was my first job after I graduated and went home. And I met someone there who gave me a magazine. She said, this magazine might be of interest to you. And it was called The Science of Mind. And that then she gave me a year subscription. And that set me more delving into it, because when I read the magazine, I said, oh, this makes sense to me. And then from there, that is where my search began. I can give you a summary of how that came, and it's in the beginning of the book, the preface of the book.
And as we're talking about the book, this is the book, Crossings, Bridging the Gap Between the Human and the Divine by Jacqueline Moniquette. All right, check it out. There's a part 1 and a part 2. Part 1 presents scientific, literary, philosophical, and spiritual underpinnings of the main themes. And then part 2 demonstrates how these ideas can be applied in selected contexts in our everyday lives. You know, you could tell where her background, her education, how it's played out by how she's presented this to everyone. So pick it up, Crossings. We need it now. Okay. More and more so. Yeah. How do you incorporate your interests in metaphysics and spirituality presently in your life? Because you're retired from your past life. You've let that go. It's moving forward nicely. You can probably check up on it every so often, or people check up with you in terms of what is happening. Yeah. But you've moved on. You've fulfilled that, and you're happy to move on in this. So how do you, incorporate those interests in your personal life? Well,
I wouldn't say that I moved on. I think that it has been a part of my life for practically my whole adult life. Right. Because one of the things when I came to Barbados, I didn't plan to come. I mean, I had come home to settle. But then this job was offered, and a long story. But anyway, when I came here, I met a group I was introduced to a group who they would start meeting every week and studying this stuff. And so that set me on a firmer path, because I had people to interact with. And we used to discuss all kinds of things, and we used to read certain texts and so. And I myself used to be doing. So this has always been a part of my adult life. And it's just that I went into different branches, if you were to say like that. And where I am now is where I'm settled for the rest of the duration. But for the duration. So what I would say about these teachings helped me tremendously to deal with the outer, and especially the kinds of jobs I had, which was so much work and so much responsibility and everything, and interacting with so many different personalities and people. It helped me a lot, because some of the teachings are focused on you developing your inner, and the teachings stress that everything comes from the inner to the outer. The outer is just a reflection of who you are inside. But everybody focuses on the outer, and they look and say, well, this one is this one is that, you know. But it really and truly, what you are outside is what you are in. Yes. And so if you develop the inner, it will automatically reflect the outer.
So just to delve into what would you say is the most important lesson you learned over your career?
That we have to give acknowledgement to the source of life, no matter how you think about that source. If it's Buddha, it's God, it's whatever. Right. That we are here by the grace of God. Right. This planet is not, we don't own this planet. We are people here who are having an experience in this planet. Correct. To take us forward to other higher frequencies. Right. Because in the end, everything is just energy. And energy, how is energy expressed? By frequency. We know this from our radio station, from our TV and so on. Each of us is a frequency, a combined, we have a frequency that is the combined thing of all that who we are. And so when I see you, you are presenting to me your radio channel, you see, and everybody. So when you see people and you know you don't agree with them or whatever, fine. Everybody's on their path, and then you have different receivers. Right. So some people you meet, you know, you see. Sometimes you meet people and you say you just. You immediately take to them. Yeah. It's because you are on similar frequencies. Other people you meet and you don't like them at all because they're in a different frequency to you. Right. It's like turning on the radio. Some people listen to classical music and other people want loud music. Right. So if you don't want loud music, and you go somewhere and the music is loud, you say, I can't take this. Right. It's frequency.
What are you most proud of in your career?
I don't think of my career in terms of being proud or not proud. That's the truth. My goal was always to do the best I could where I was at the time, in spite of difficulties. And also I was fortunate really to be, even though starting up things new is difficult, I was really fortunate to be able to do some things that you only read about in textbooks, like when you go to school, they teach you this, that, but I was able to implement some of these things that really and truly most people just know about from textbooks. And I think I was very fortunate.
And also you're able to do things that people can't even comprehend, really, wrap their minds around what you've done.
Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
So, as I said, both my jobs, you know, I guess what was up on there was a lot of the quality assurance, but I spent more years at CXE with developing those subjects, which was really something.
Talk to me a little bit more about that.
Well, to replace Cambridge exams was a big deal.
Sure.
And at the time, it brought the Caribbean together.
Right.
Because we had to train people in every Caribbean country because it was new. And we had new features in the exam. And so we had new syllabuses. And those syllabuses were what the exams were based on. And so we also introduced multiple choice questions. And so I had a whole cadre of people who were writing questions to send to me, and they were vetted and so on. They were paid. And then when we had to mark the exams, we used to meet in person. So that brought the whole Caribbean education community. I still meet people who, the other day I met someone that used to mark so many years ago in Trinidad. They had a wonderful time, some of them, when they came. And they missed, now everything is online. They don't do that anymore, that thing. So it allowed me to know the Caribbean, to meet lots of people. Some people, obviously, I had some impact on because they would tell me, you know, after years meeting them and so on.
Some people that you know.
Yes. Well, that I meet up and they said, Miss Moniquette, you know, when with this, that, you know, that kind of thing. They really, you know, and so it was really, really, this was groundbreaking, that experience.
That's why I use the word pioneer.
And it was for the people of the Caribbean, it was, because it was a new, some people objected and said, we want to go back to Cambridge. And I'll just give you a small example of how we introduced ecology into the biology syllabus. The head of it, the head of the exams and the syllabus committee, she was a professor at Mona. She's still alive, she's 98. And when we started to talk about the environment, and the first exam was 1985. And when we put these questions in the exam, we got some real blowback because people said, this is not biology, this is social studies, this is geography. What is this doing in a biology syllabus? And the chief examiner, she said, people have no anticipatory intelligence.
I like that line, yes.
And you see where we are now with the ecology?
Yes.
You see what we are now with the climate change? Yes. This was 1985.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jacqueline Moniquette. Jacqueline, thank you for being here. Jacqueline Moniquette, thank you. Thank you, Caribbean Airlines. Thank you, Mr. J. Andre Laveau. I am so happy to be sitting next to you. Every story leaves a mark. Every voice builds a movement. Now, the spirit of On the Call with Ozzie can travel with you, worn, shared, and supported across the world. Visit us for more merch. onthecallpodcast.com/store. Check it out. Thank you. So guys, thank you for being here with us. Thank you to Cheese, the OTC team. And like I always say, when you're on your beat, stay on the sunny, sunny side of the street safely and be kind to one another. And don't forget to give thanks for the little and big gifts as we strive through into this beautiful life. Now hang in there. Join us on the membership page for ITC Inside the Call with Jacqueline Moniquette. See you in a minute.